Thank you. What a joy it is to be here today. When I first spent some time with the Vuvio team at what I thought was going to be a sales call, we actually had a great conversation. We got deep into discussing their passion for training and training systems, and somehow that conversation also turned into talking about my great passion, which is making women feel comfortable and confident working in manufacturing and in the chemical industry. And so we kind of talked about the intersection of those two passions. And so that's what's got me here today, is to talk to you guys about that. And my experience has been shaped greatly by the opportunity that I've had to work with our Women in Olin group. And so, for the legal disclaimer, I'm here as an independent representative and sharing my own thoughts and opinions, not as a official member of Olin. And none of what I say today should be construed as an Olin HR policy or their feelings about DEI. Okay, great. So, for a show of hands, if you guys would, how many of you have already been engaged in conversations in your plants about attracting female talent and retaining female talent? By a show of hands, a couple. Okay, if you're awake, raise your hand. That's the number of you that I hope are going to be, energetic and go back to work on Monday and dive into these conversations. So I'm glad that you're here today. I wish I could kind of hear everybody's thoughts in their mind. I know that this is a topic where there's as many unique, thoughts and perspectives as there are individuals in this room. And so, these type of things shape your worldview. And it's things like your intellectual perspective, your ethics, wisdom, how you feel about big or small government, all the things that make you an individual shape your worldview. So I know that this is a topic that, feels different to each of you, and that you've heard the term DEI. I think, the diversity and inclusion part is pretty clear to most of us, but, there's a little bit of a blur in the middle. Sometimes people think of the E as equity, and sometimes they think of the E as equality. So I wanted to just spend a second here and talk through that with you guys. So this is a slide put together by Great Heart Consulting that takes us from reality to justice. So for each of these 4 squares, we'll take a look. On the left is the reality. So that's where we are now. You've got 3 individuals that have different heights and statures, and you'll see that each of them also has some resources here. Some are going to get more resources than they need, or just what they need, and many are going to get less than what they need. So even though this guy is tall enough where he could have seen over that fence, he actually started off in a hole. The short guy in the middle actually got 3 bricks to help him up so he can see, but he's got more than he needs. And the person in the wheelchair, unfortunately, they have neither. They start neutral, but they still can't see. So if you consider equality, you'll see that everybody here in this next picture gets the same support, and that works better for some than for others. And then going into equity, you've got everything from I don't need any extra support to a brick to this full ramp. And so that makes everybody kind of level-headed, and they can all get that same view of what's going on in the field and have the same opportunities to, let's say, enjoy life or a work opportunity or things like that in their career. So I recognize that some of you are going to say fair is fair, equality is fair, and some of you are going to say fair is fair, equity is fair. And how you feel about that might change even from one situation to the next, and what you think the situation should be. But then if you look to the right, that's the scenario of justice. And so that's where you have that structural or systematic causes of inequity have been removed, and then everyone can come as they are. So I wanted to kind of start us off with that conversation, just to kind of align each of us to why is this important topic, women in manufacturing, attracting and retaining talent, relevant to everybody, regardless of kind of your views on this. So the rest of this presentation, we're going to be talking about some specific ideas on how to attract and retain female talent in some of these categories. And so it'll be things like, benefits in HR, intentional inclusion, wellness, support during different stages of life, motherhood, female talent pipeline, technical skills, and of course that includes training, which is, why we're all here today to talk about training, and community. So for benefits in HR practices, It's great to offer flexible working hours, if and when you can. And of course, just like flexible working hours, most of the things I'm going to talk about aren't just a great way to attract and retain women, but they also appeal to men in your plants and work too. So it's really a good all around, but it's focused on things that, we think would be appealing to women. Company paid volunteer time off. By a show of hands, how many of your companies have a VTO policy now? Do y'all know? So not very many. I think that's one of the things that I, love about Olin and that kind of distinguishes us, and that HR has allowed me to share with you today, is that they offer 40 hours a year of volunteer time off. So that's paid time away from work. And so one of the reasons that really appeals to me is because I'm a wife and mother. And so, if my kids have an event or, they have a field trip, something like that, I can say yes to those opportunities and not have to either take away from my vacation time or, say I have to work. But, that gives me that opportunity to go volunteer, be present in the community, and also engage with my kids and the things that they want to do and that are meaningful to them. And, it doesn't have to be things with kids. It could be other volunteering in the community. So I think that's great. So if you're working in an HR department and y'all haven't done that yet, maybe consider it. Telecommuting options, company-sponsored work-life balance initiatives, mentorship programs, or sponsorship. And if you don't know the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, I hope that you guys will kind of look into that. I think that's something that the younger generation is kind of missing, that I feel like I had growing up, is that you'd have a sponsor that might say something great about you when you're not in the room, that might be looking out for opportunities for you and things like that when you're not there. And I think sometimes we focus more on the mentorship now, and we're not just really intentionally looking out for others. So that's an area I would, like to see more focus. Employee resource programs and people networks. So also the next thing is intentional inclusion of women. And that would be on things like an interview team. So how many times have you gone into an interview and it's an all male panel? It's great to, be intentional and include women there. Likewise for project teams and special assignments, and both as a participant in the special team and leading those special teams and projects. Giving them development opportunities for promotions, and helping them find ways to move into management. And then, of course, having women mentors and being championed, like I said in the previous slide. Here's some ideas for some wellness things that you could do. You could offer programs and encouragement in support of things like healthy lifestyle. And that can be goal planning, prioritization, personal effectiveness. Our organization has also done things like a hydration challenge or a steps challenge, things like that to encourage wellness. Meal preps. We've done things like hosting mobile mammograms and things like that, so that women could just, take a 15-minute break out of their day and go get their mammogram there on site. That's something that's been really helpful. Breast exams, heart health, detecting signs of heart attacks in women, which is a little bit different than it is in men. And even things like, if you have a shoe mobile that comes out to your facility, a lot of times they have one or two styles for women, and they don't have the smaller sizes available for some of those men's shoes. And so once or twice a year, you could get the shoe mobile to stock all women's sizes and say, hey, this is a special event. The truck is full of women's sizes and styles. And, that also sometimes appeals to the gentlemen who have a smaller size foot. Sometimes they have a hard time just finding their size in the shoe mobile. So that's another thing that can really appeal to everyone. And then support during each stage of life, whether you're single or married, you have children or an empty nest. One of the big ones I think that goes unnoticed and a lot of people don't recognize is that sometimes, there's some more help that's needed during menopause, and it's a time of life that people don't understand. But when your mom is going through it or your wife is going through it, even if you're a gentleman, all of a sudden you become an expert. So, you're going to know about it at some point in time, whether you want to or not. So, I would ask you guys to just go ahead and open those those lines of communication now. Be comfortable sitting at the table and talking about these issues that women face, because you will one day or another. And then caring for aging parents. And so we all know that motherhood is a big and important time of life, where we really have to, be open and inclusive and give some thought to how we can support women that are working in the industry during the time either that they're pregnant, when they're on maternity leave, when they return to work. Maybe we welcome them with a gift basket and some diapers or things like that. We could say encouraging words. We could welcome them back to that role that they left. We could tell them, don't fear that your role will be taken or your project will be taken. There's still a seat for you at the table when you get back. And then, finding and arranging childcare is big. And we saw that in COVID, when there was a lot of women that couldn't continue to work because of, the childcare crisis and things like that. So it's important that, everyone is just kind of aware that sometimes those childcare situations really affect women harder and differently than maybe they do men. And of course, that's not all the time, but just a consideration. Of course, managing school-aged children. My daughter is in a play this evening that she's got opening night at 7 p.m. So here I am trying not to say I'm a bad mom for not being there early and having the sign with her name and the flowers and all of that, because I'm here with you guys. But I'll make it just in time. And, really that is a balance and something that maybe a lot of people don't know that that's something that could be causing additional stress. Just the management of a household and also self-care. That's a big issue. Did you see her swinging? Y'all missed that cool graphic. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the female talent pipeline. How many of you guys are kind of aware of what that is and what it would look like? It's kind of the same as recruiting, where you start with the larger end of the funnel, where there's a lot of potential talent that's out there. What I find is that it's great to engage those ladies early and often. And for us, what that looks like is talking to women both in high school and in, kind of like the junior college stage of their career when they are quite young. And it's helping them feel comfortable and confident entering the chemical industry and entering manufacturing. And then having those women be visible during the recruitment activities, giving them printed materials and things like that, and getting your logo out there, things like that, so they really know your company. And so that helps you to recruit talent. And technical skills, that's the theme of the day, right? Through training, we develop our technical skills. So some of the things that we've offered our folks are things like lunch and learns or specific training on, let's say, a subtopic that's very specific, like valves or, how to manage temporary berms or something like that. A technology that they might not have experienced hands-on. We can get those vendors to come in. And they often pay for lunch and say, hey, we'll pay for lunch if you can get a group of folks in here to just listen to a speech. So those have been great for us. Hands-on experience, of course, is wonderful. And when you can't get hands-on experience, you can use virtual training tools. Anybody in here know about virtual training tools? All right. And of course, education. And maybe not the most important, but also something that I think is so meaningful to each of us, and we don't always think about it in the scope of work, but that's community engagement. And so that could be things like volunteering with or without time off, right? Maybe it's on a Saturday or a Sunday. If you can't do it during your work days, then that's okay. We can do things like partnering with schools and serving on those advisory committees. I know some of you guys mentioned earlier advisories for junior colleges. How many of those do we have in the room? Do we have any left? A couple? Yeah, those are great. I find it to be really meaningful too. If you guys haven't looked into that, it's an opportunity to actually engage with the instructors and help them kind of develop that curriculum that helps them enter the workforce and be prepared and be confident for the jobs that we actually have in the plant. So those are great. And then any kind of program that celebrates community service, and just get involved. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you guys. I know it's been a long day and you had to stay a little bit later to hear me speak, so I appreciate you being here.